Right, welcome to my first YouTube video, episode 1. So my name is Alex, or nicknamed Sax. I am a 25-year-old Muay Thai fighter currently living in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And this is going to be the story of how getting robbed was the best thing that ever happened to me. So this happened when I was 21 years old, and at this point in my life I had just finished university and got my first corporate sales job. I was looking forward to making some money. And at this point in my life was very much so 9 to 5 throughout the week, and then go out on the weekend, and the cycle repeat. At this point in my life, I was very much into health and fitness, into nutrition. I got in really good shape, and I was doing kickboxing, but not very much so focusing on fighting just yet. At this point in my life, I was super dialed in on becoming like the best salesman ever. I remember getting really excited over getting my first job, over getting my first paycheck. It was the first time I was making decent money, and I have quite an obsessive personality, so I was super locked in. I remember buying loads of books on sales, and the first few months of my job, I was really basically just trying to impress everyone there, and do the best I could. Now, at that point in my life, I got my first job, and it was a really exciting point in my life because it felt like I could finally see out some of my aspirations. I always had ideas of starting an online business, but nothing that was concrete. And then when the job came around, it felt like something I could latch onto and focus on and really put a lot of energy into. But at this point, I'd be working at that place for about 8 months. And yeah, at that point, I was happy because I was making money. I was finally out of school, and yeah, I felt like I was finally progressing somewhere. But I still felt a little bit empty, a little bit unfulfilled. I knew that a lot of my day would build up to looking forward to training and going to the gym. And I had deep passions elsewhere, but I didn't really understand how I could make them more involved in my life. So, what happened in this story was I went out to London with a lot of my friends, and this is what we usually would do on the weekend. We'd go either to pubs or clubbing, and that was the usual cycle that would go on. Like I said, Monday through to Friday you'd work, Saturday there would be plans, Sunday you'd spend hungover, and then the cycle would repeat. So I was out in London, and I was out with a lot of my friends, and we went out to the club, and at this point in my life I was drinking quite a lot. So yeah, as any usual person would at that age, I got drunk, I went to the club, and then I don't have much recollection, clear recollection of what happened because I was quite drunk. But I remember leaving the club and I didn't know what area I was in. I wasn't very familiar with London. I would kind of just let my friends take care of the directions where we were going, and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I left the club because I felt like I was too drunk. I wanted to go home. I don't think I was enjoying myself very much. And at that point, I got approached by three guys, and they started asking me questions. And then I was a bit naive to it at the time. And then they pulled knives out and said that they wanted to obviously take my things. So I didn't know any better. All I knew was that, okay, whoever these people are, I don't want to put my life at risk, especially when I'm in this state. I wasn't going to be an idiot. So I thought rationally, and I handed over my things. And at the time, I couldn't really comprehend the weight of this situation and how it would impact me because I was drunk, and my mind was quite clouded. So I remember I went to a nearby food shop because obviously I didn't know where I was. I didn't know where the train station was to get home, and yeah, I was quite lost. But like I said, I didn't really feel like it because I was still drunk. I sort of thought I'd just figure my way out of this. And luckily, I met someone at this food stand that basically saw that I was in a tough spot and actually paid for a taxi for me to get to the station and to get my train home. I remember turning up to the train station, and I explained to the warden there that I'd just been robbed, and I showed him my pockets. I said that I have no wallet, I have no phone, like I have no way of getting home. Like, is it okay if he just lets me onto the train? And I remember he looked at me and started shaking his head. He was like, "Nah, I don't see how this is going to be possible." And at that point, I was pretty done with it. Like, I started sobering up, and the emotions started coming on, and I kind of just walked on and said, "Fuck this! Like, I'm going to get home. I don't care what you say." And I just walked onto the train, and luckily he didn't do anything. So I don't know why he said that in the first place. But to make matters even worse, when I got onto this train, I fell asleep on it. So I ended up at the airport, which was an hour away from where I lived. So I had to wait for another train to get back to where I lived. And then the train station was about a 30 minute run away from my house. And I obviously couldn't order any taxis. I didn't have any money. So I remember it being 7:30 a.m. and I ran home, still half drunk. And then I didn't have my keys either because I left them at my friend's house, where we left for London from. So yeah, I was in a tough situation. I had to end up climbing through my own house window to get back in, and I just passed out in bed. And I woke up at 2 p.m. And then the emotion set in. I was full of despair and my heart felt empty. I know it wasn't the worst situation because I was still well, I was still healthy, but there were deeper things that were going on that I'll discuss in a little bit, past just being robbed. I think it built on to how subtly I was unhappy with my situation. Anyway, that day. I was obviously not in a good mood, and I told my friends what had happened, and in typical fashion, we all got together and we got drunk again because I was like, you know what, if you can't laugh about this situation, like, what's the point? So I went to the phone shop, I got myself a new phone, and ended up getting drunk with my friends. And by then the mood elevated a little bit and I was happy. But again, the next day was where all the change really happened, and I was hungover again. And the emotions didn't go. I had my phone back. Obviously lost my wallet. I had to deal with the stress of, getting my card sorted out. They spent a lot of money on my card, and then my phone ended up somewhere in China because I still had Find My iPhone on, and I checked where it was a couple weeks later. So yeah, I was not in a good situation, and this whole event forced me to really think about my life, the location I was in, the environment I was in, where I was headed, what I was doing with my spare time. And in a weird way, it's the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'll explain why now. So I got into this state of trying to figure out why this affected me so much. Everything had been sorted out. I'd got my new phone. It was annoying that I had to spend money on it, but I'd moved past it. But something still wasn't right. I started questioning where my life was going. Was I truly happy doing this corporate sales job, which I'd been conditioned from a kid to believe that this was the path that I needed to be on, get a job, start making money, serve a function in society, and from there, go on to whatever my future held. So I did what any 21-year-old in my position would do, and I didn't have any answers. So I thought the most productive way to spend my time, slightly through procrastination, was to watch a Alex Hormozy podcast that came up on my YouTube because I knew him as this big business figure, and I knew that there were bigger aspirations that I had in life, and maybe him speaking about his experiences would have something to offer for me. And luckily, it did. In this podcast, he spoke about the region beta paradox, and this is the first time I got introduced to this concept. And it's the idea that a mildly uncomfortable situation will not make you change, whereas a very painful situation is actually better because it is going to force you to change. And me getting robbed was my really painful situation, and the life I was living before was my mildly uncomfortable situation where, you know, I had a good job, I was earning decent money, I was doing things I enjoyed, like I was spending time with my friends. It's not that I don't enjoy partying and drinking and stuff like that, it's that it became my entire life, and it became the only thing I really looked forward to, which was pretty sad considering that I had this burning passion for fitness, for nutrition, and that is where my heart lied, but it was such a small part of my life back then. So yeah, I was introduced to this concept and it forced me to really think about my life and where I wanted to take it. And at the time, I remember I had a friend that was in Thailand, and he went there traveling but ended up staying for, I think, nearly 2 years, or maybe slightly less, because he went out there to travel but ended up staying there by himself and starting a business, because I guess he was inspired by the life that he could be living, and he felt like he had more to offer and something that he wanted to build, and Thailand was an opportunity for him to do that. And I remember speaking to him and he just said to me, he's like, look, like, get out to Thailand, like, what have you got to lose? And back then I never even considered the idea of doing something so drastic, because it was just a complete 180 from everything that I've been working towards, my uni degree, or this idea that I'm going to get this job, this well-paying job, go work in London, put a suit on every day, and so on and so forth. And at the time, I remember I just latched onto this idea of I need to change, like this can't be how my life's going to look for the next 20 years. I don't want to be in the UK, although it's full of such amazing opportunities. I wasn't truly wanting any of them. They weren't where my heart was at. And I really started thinking about how I could move to Thailand and build myself a business, build myself an income. I was very aspirational. I knew that I wanted to make a lot of money in life. I knew that I loved fitness. I had a liking to kickboxing, but my love for Muay Thai and combat sports really grew when I came to Thailand, because I was exposed to the culture here and it made me fall in love with it, and that's what I'm doing now. But at the time, I remember thinking, okay, there's online coaching, like a lot of people do this and I know I can do this. I've got so many experiences, so much information to offer. I've went through my own problems with eating disorders, misinformation being spread online, having spent so much of my time in my younger years training and not really seeing results, to now being able to, be shredded, be in insane shape, whilst also managing a social life, and doing numerous other things. Like, my life was super busy, but ironically at that same time, that was the time that I got in the best shape of my life. So yeah, I latched onto this idea and I said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I think I want to move to Thailand, and a couple weeks later, I managed to convince one of my best friends to come out there with me, because in all honesty, I was quite nervous, I was quite scared, I was dropping everything, I was quitting my job, leaving everything behind that I knew, and starting a life on the other side of the world. But I'm so thankful that happened now. And yeah, that's how I ended up in Thailand, and I have no regrets. However, it's not all plain sailing now. I have my coaching business, which I'm super passionate about, and it started off being weight cutting for fighters, because naturally that was the area that I was in. However, I realized with time my passion was really helping my clients change their life and habits, and really become different people altogether, because I worked with a mix of clients from fighters. I also worked with clients who just generally were out of shape, didn't have the answers, their lives were getting busier, they felt like they got these nice jobs finally, but they were out of shape, they didn't look like the way they looked, they lacked confidence, they didn't know what to do because there were just 50 different options from different influencers online, and no concrete answer or systems how to make these changes last. So yeah, I started building my business and started pursuing something that made me way more fulfilled, and that was helping people like that, because I knew how much of an impact that had on me, being sad about doing so many of the right things, or what I thought were the right things, and still not seeing the results. But yeah, that moving abroad did not fix all my problems, but it was a catalyst to change my life completely. And now I have been faced with so many new challenges when it comes to building a business, becoming an entrepreneur. I was almost maybe a little bit naive. I do remember going out there thinking, like, I've got all the knowledge, like, I'm quite charismatic, I'm gonna make this work, like, people are gonna gravitate towards me. But business in itself is a completely different beast, and I'm very privileged for the challenges that I've come across, both in building a business, both in fighting Muay Thai out here. It's forced me to grow as a person, and although I haven't got every single thing figured out right now, I am looking forward to growing and progressing past this stage in my life. What life looks like now is I train, I make content, I focus on my business. I'm still trying to figure out the best way of growing it, because I've had to completely change my marketing, change my offer, and push something completely new to a new audience that I'm unfamiliar with. And like I said, it's built its own challenges, because I have needed to be very, very honest with what I wanted from the business, and honest with where my gaps are, honest with the things that are currently holding me back, both in terms of my limiting beliefs. I knew I had these dreams that constantly recurred in my head, but I also had the self-doubt attached to it, because I ended up leaving behind a lot of my friends, and it was sad. It was really sad, because I stopped speaking to a lot of people that were I saw them being in my life for a very long time and maintained contact with them consistently. But naturally, when you do something like this and you move halfway across the world, you lose those connections. But yeah, man, I'm super thankful. I've said that already, but I made this YouTube channel and this video to really document my journey throughout all of this, and keep myself aligned to everything I teach, tell you guys about my story, all the trials and tribulations that I've been through, and offer a perspective into my mind, my training, my knowledge, and hopefully help some of you make a positive change in your life, because I know a lot of people are sat in situations where they are happy with their life just enough that they don't need to change it, but they know they could be happier. They just need that painful event. But I'm gonna save you the painful event by telling this story, and tell you that if you have something that constantly comes up in your head, there's a reason for that. I don't think that you repetitively have thoughts about dreams and aspirations, even if they're coupled with self-doubt, if you didn't know that you're capable of them. And breaking past those mental barriers and taking risks is something I highly recommend, because although I don't make massive amounts of money right now, although I don't know what my life is going to look like a year from now, I love every part of it, because I've seen more growth as a person and taken more steps towards what I love and my goal in the past 2 years than I did throughout 5 years of university, another 5 years or more of education, and the 2 years that I worked in corporate sales. So yeah, I'm feeling very thankful. But anyway, that is a story wrapped up. Expect more videos on this channel. I'm going to do more raw talks like this, speaking about past experiences, particularly with nutrition and how I finally got in shape, and other important times in my life that really shifted my trajectory. But yeah, thank you for